Hello and welcome.
Hi.
You're listening to Almost 30 Podcast. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Lindsay and Krista, your BFFs on this journey called
Your
life.
BFFs on this journey, true best friends, talking about friendship in today's episode.
It's been a hot topic amongst our community. And I
Yeah.
feel like just at this stage in life, there's usually a friendship reckoning, whether it's in your Saturn return or right after, where there is a great purge where a lot of
Mhm.
friendships become no longer aligned and you
Mhm.
have to make some shifts, have hard conversations, clearing conversations.
Things become toxic.
It's crazy.
Things become toxic and she becomes a narcissist.
Yeah. Literally, everyone's a narcissist in your
Everyone.
30s. No, but it's been a journey. I feel like we've both gone
Yeah.
through different friendship shifts and purges in different seasons of our lives. And at the time, it kind of felt, I remember ones that you were kind of moving through. And I
Yeah.
remember it feeling so intense, like
Yeah.
end of world.
Yeah.
And I think what we do, and I relate to this too, it's like we identify so much with being someone's friend.
Oh, yes.
And when it like crumbles or it's no longer aligned
Yep.
or it's like time to separate, you're like, what does this say about me?
Yes, 100%. I've realized I had that recently with someone where I'm like, and this is where being honest with yourself is so important. Because I had to be honest with myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
girl, are you holding on to this friendship because you're afraid people are going to think you're a bad person if you're not friends with this person?
Yeah.
Are you afraid people are going to think you're a bad friend, or what's the judgment you think people are going to have about you? And are you staying in this friendship because of what people think about you or because you actually want to be in this friendship?
Sure.
And it's like, I'm worried about what people think about me.
Yeah.
I don't know
totally,
why I'm very
totally.
concerned about, not very, but I have a concern about people perceiving me as a good friend or a good person.
And is it that person?
Being liked.
Is it that person in particular that you're worried about what they think, or because I think
public perception more
Yeah.
so, to be honest.
the reality of, and this is not always the case with people, but some people that we are friends with
Mhm.
also have public
Yes.
facing brands, personas. And so when I've cut off some people who also have a following, I've gotten DMs before
Of
from
course.
people being like, "Are you friends with so-and-so still?"
I had that the other day.
And I'm like, "Oh, Jesus."
Someone said, they're like, oh, you were this place and this person wasn't there. We should, like, basically, I was somewhere and they're like, oh, I noticed X person isn't here. I had a feeling she wasn't like a good person. And I was like, she's still my friend. She's just not here.
Weird.
It was so weird. I was like, oh, and I didn't realize that other people
That's reality TV.
are using you as a gauge for who's good or bad. You know what I mean? If they trust you, then they're saying, okay, does Krista, or, and I'm using myself as just an example, you might have another influencer person or whatever that you're perceiving. Is this person good or bad based on my trust for this person?
Interesting.
I was like, wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that there would be that situation, but it is a little bit reality TV.
Mhm.
There is an aspect to it where you are two public figures and you share about things publicly, just like romantic relationships. If you're sharing about them, your friendships, people are going to kind of be tracking what's going on and
Mhm.
is this relationship good? Like, how's the friendship going? So I've shared less, I think, than I've normal. Like, I've been hanging out more with people and not sharing it because I'm like, oh, I don't want people to get attached with me
Yeah.
in this relationship
Yeah, totally.
and have like a story about it.
But sometimes I even do that where I'm like, I'm looking at someone's profile. I'm like, oh, they haven't had a picture with so-and-so in a while. Did they break up or are they
Totally.
friends still? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So we all have that.
I
But
just only share about the friends that I have that have a lot of followers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
over
my thing.
100K.
Yes, 100%.
But the friendship topic was one that we really wanted to get into with Danielle Bayard Jackson, who is the friendship expert. She's a friendship educator, publicist, podcast host, and producer, and now author.
Mhm.
Her new book, Fighting for Our Friendships, is out now. It's an incredible book about the science and art of conflict and connection in women's relationships. And, I know you've said this, and I've had this experience as well with women in particular, where it's like they have been some of my greatest teachers.
Mhm.
As hard as it is in the moment, you really are, it's a mirror,
Mhm.
I think, for me, in relationships. So we talk about so much. We talk about the art of conflict and how to navigate these conversations that feel really crunchy and you're not sure how to approach it in a way that keeps them open, non-defensive, like they can be themselves. And so that was like really helpful for me. Sometimes I feel like my emotions really direct a conversation and I'm
Mm.
not necessarily, this was more me in the past, but
I was like, I don't know this, Lindsay.
yeah, but I feel like we've kind of,
Mhm.
I have my moments where I'm just like, I don't feel like making this artful.
Oh, what do you
And I
mean?
just want to say
Oh, what do you
what's
mean?
here.
That's what you have to actually, with all my clients, I'm like, get in the car and say the inappropriate thing. Say the bad
Mhm.
thing. I want you to cuss.
Yeah.
I want you to be like, shut the F up.
Yeah.
I don't give a F. Da da da. I'm like, no, that is a part of this.
Yeah.
Like allowing that part, because then you can move to art.
Yes.
But I hear you. Like sometimes I know you're just like,
Uh-huh.
I just want to rip.
Yeah, I just want to rep. I just want to say what's true. I don't want to have to like craft this.
I know, dude.
But she gives,
What I'm sensing here is
yeah,
that
what I'm
you're like
picking
a
up
mago
on.
therapying everybody.
But she does it in a way that's like very real, which I appreciate.
Yes, yes, she is so real. And the conversation around friendships is so important because we can't be relying on just our marriages or romantic
Yeah.
relationships for everything. And I think now more so than ever, the friendship relationships bring so much to our lives. And as
Yeah.
we move hopefully more towards communal um, systems where people are relying on their community and people, we can rely more on our friends. But in addition to romantic relationships, we haven't been taught to have friendships.
Yeah.
You haven't been taught to go through the conflict repair cycle. I posted a graphic recently that said if you want intimacy, you have to be able to withstand the conflict repair cycle
Mm-hmm.
that creates it.
Mm-hmm.
Conflict repair is what creates intimacy, among other things. But it's really, really important that you're able to do that. And I think a lot of us haven't been able to do that. A lot of us leave our bodies. A lot of us like give up. A lot of us just move on. And that makes sense to me. But when you really want to be in true relationship to people, you have to do that. I had a friend recently who's going through something, and it's so interesting. My friends that have narcissistic parents, because the way that we operate is just so it's not so unique, but it's just different.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going through something, you usually pull back or pull away or hide that aspect of whatever's going on. So she's in that process, and she's like just apologizing about how she's showing up in a deep process. And I was like, if you're not giving, like, I want to have the opportunity to love you for you, not for like
Yeah.
being the person that's perfectly processed, like being the person that's showing up for everybody, being everyone's like rock. And if you don't allow people to show up for you, we won't be able to love who you really are. And so it was really beautiful to be in a situation with a friend where you can like actually pull out more of them and
Mm-hmm.
like pull out more of that person and more of that truth, because so often for friendship a part of what is needed and important is like bringing out that, like bringing things out of them,
Yes.
like so that they can be healed or loved or seen, because a lot of us like tend to hide in
Yeah.
relationships.
Completely. And it's just, I think, depending on whether it's your parents' relationship, that can affect your friendships.
Yeah.
Like the conflict repair cycle, I never saw. So even as a young adult, I never was able to, I either didn't bring up something that would cause conflict, a truth that would cause
Yes.
little conflict
Yep.
and need resolve, or I wouldn't know how to get through the resolving part, whether it was a friendship or romantic relationship.
Yes.
And so I would either, fawn or like
Yeah.
submit or forget it, or I would just run away.
Yes.
So it's been so healing in my female friendships to be able to not run
Yes.
and hold my pose in like what I'm experiencing and
Mhm.
not apologize. I think now in this season of motherhood, like I'm desiring more of that community
Yeah.
who are also in the motherhood stage.
Yeah.
And also what I've realized is it's going to require me to no longer apologize,
Yeah.
whether literally apologize or energetically apologize for anything
Yeah.
really. Because it's such a new season. Everything's new every day. They're changing all the time. And so to also manage what you think you need to be in a relationship,
Mhm.
it's just not going to work.
Mhm.
Like, it's going to take away from your ability to be a good mom and be really present. So it's actually been liberating to be like, not apologize if I don't text back within a
Mhm.
few days,
Mhm.
or um not, or to make someone feel also very comfortable in their unpredictability right now,
Mhm.
where we have an understanding
Yeah.
that, like, yes, we want to be accountable and connected, but like, we also don't need to stress
Yeah.
if we need to punt this to next week,
Totally.
or if you are overwhelmed and you're coming to me really messy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just an understanding where there needs to be no apologies, and that's really, I think, taken a layer off of friendships
Yeah.
where, like, apologies for me in the past kept it on the surface.
Mm.
Like, why would I have to apologize for something that's so, I guess, human and, like, not malicious
Mhm.
anyway?
Mhm.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
totally. It makes so much sense. Yeah, there's like a levity, and there's a capacity, and there's like a honesty, and there's just like there's also like, I think, as a mother, and you can correct me, like there's just a kind of like psychic constant like energetic expenditure analysis
Oh, yeah.
where you're just like, okay, getting ready in the morning, what's my energetic expenditure availability? Okay, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
What is for this conversation? What is this for this moment? What is for my job? What is for my
Mhm.
relationship? Like,
Mhm.
you just have to be so mindful of your reserves
Oh, yeah.
of energy.
And there's always a part of your brain that's thinking about your
Of
child.
course.
So you're
Yes.
like, it's pulling from other
Yes.
places
100%.
that you would have exerted
Yes.
energy. So that's been also interesting. So I think to be around people who also experience that, even if it's not being talked about, although I do want to talk about it,
Yes.
it's like a psychic understanding.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like we're here as much as we can be.
Yeah.
We're here with the desire and as much as we literally can be. Um, I think this conversation is going to be so great. There's a lot of research that she brings in. There's a lot of data and science that she brings in that I really love.
Yeah.
We did an event with her at Peoplehood in New York City, which was so much fun. It was all on female friendships. It was such a beautiful room. So grateful for everyone that came to that. It was with it was with Peoplehood, Bumble BFF, and then Lindsay, myself, and Danielle. So we got to be together in person and connect
Yeah.
more deeply, which was awesome. So the book right now is Fighting for Our Friendship, and it is by Danielle Bayard Jackson. And you are listening to our conversation on Almost 30. Hear about it now.
Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate you. Please subscribe to the podcast as well as our clip show, Morning Microdose. This is the best of the best of Almost 30 that you can listen to first thing in the morning every day during the week. There's a new episode.
Love it so much. Almost 30 podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Make sure to follow us there. Find us on Spotify or Apple Podcast and subscribe, rate, and review. It means so much to us. Send this to a friend. Send this to someone that you want to have deeper conversations with, that you want to go deeper with, that you want to connect more. Anyone in your life that you're looking to improve your friendship relationships with could really benefit from this episode.
All right. Enjoy. We'll see you on the other side.
See you soon.
Okay, I've been taking this every morning and every night. Is it a tiny, tiny capsule? And I swear to you, I've been taking it for, I think it's been like 12 weeks now. So about 3 months. And I have noticed an incredible difference in the fine lines and wrinkles on my face. As you might have heard, I am no longer doing Botox. I am postpartum. I'm still breastfeeding. And I just felt like it was time to find better alternatives and do something that like my body agreed with. And one of those things is taking BioSil every single day. This is a clinically proven supplement that is a collagen generator. It also protects the collagen you already have. I don't know if you know this, but after the age of 21, you start losing 1% of your collagen every year. And why is collagen important? It's important for your skin because it gives like natural support and firmness to your face. So this helps you generate your own collagen. It's backed by science, over 25 years and $25 million in research. This is real results, y'all. I know with skin stuff, you're like, huh? No, real results clinically proven to work for healthier hair, skin, and nails. It increases skin elasticity by 89% and decreases the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles by 30%. Incredible. Again, one in the morning, one in the evening. Literally, the capsule is so tiny. This is safe for pregnant moms to be or when breastfeeding. Unbelievable. I'm so excited for you. You can buy online or you can buy on BioSyl's website, which is biosyl.beauty, or you can go to your local retailer. So get 30% off your first product order on BioSyl's website with code almost30. Again, that's the code for 30% off. The code is almost30 for your first product order or subscription exclusively on biosyl.beauty, BIOSIL.beauty. I am back on my clothing rental game and I'm so happy. So I have a vacation coming up with my family. We're going to Jamaica and I was like, "Oh, girl needs some warm weather clothing." So my Nuuly subscription came in so handy. Nuuly. This is a subscription clothing rental service that's all about helping you have fun and get creative with your style. Y'all, I found some pops of color. I'm so excited. I have this like beautiful top and skirt set that I'm going to wear from a brand called Farm Rio. Really fab. I got these frame jeans. Maybe you saw them. I was wearing them in an interview recently, but they're like wide leg. They fit so perfectly. I might even buy them, but I love that I can rent clothes, that I'm not just like buying clothes willy nilly and like getting rid of them so quickly. Every month, I rent 6 items from Nuuly's shared closet of over 17,000 styles for everything I have going on. So, whether it's like interviews for the pod, or I'm going on vacation, or just going out for date night, you can find dressy stuff for occasions, trending going out clothes, casual tops, and premium jeans for hanging around, sweaters, outerwear, vacation fits, you name it. So, I just love that I can just like explore my style right now. I'm a new mom, just exploring, getting back into it, and it's so freaking fun. They take care of everything from shipping to laundry, and I can even pause without paying a fee. So if you need to take a break for any reason, no stress at all. Nuuly is a great value at $98 a month for any 6 styles, but right now you can get $20 off your first month of Nuuly when you sign up with the code almost30. Just go to nuuly.com. That's Nuuly with 2 U's, and enter the code almost30 and sign up to get $20 off your first month. That's Nuuly.com, Nuuly.com. Nuuly with 2 U's with code almost30. Nuuly subscription clothing rental. Change your clothes.
Okay, so Danielle's here, and we met at Peoplehood and Bumble talking about friendship, which was so much fun. And honestly, I was just blown away by you. I'm like, because I feel like the topic of friendship is something that so many people talk about and are curious about. I think people talk about it more in the sense of complaining about it
Mhm.
rather than anything else. And the way that you're able to bring science and research and information from clients and bring words and information to things that people really struggle and suffer with, I think is so real important. So I'm really excited to talk about friendship today because in our community at almost 30, people ask us about it all the time.
Mm.
The question of female friendships is such a big one. And I think for me, friends have broken my heart way more than men. Like I have had my heart broken by women, and I'm sure I've broken women's hearts, honey. I'm sure I've been a bad friend, and now I feel like I'm do my best to be as good of a friend as possible. And I think my life has changed having really meaningful friendships in my life
Mhm.
and knowing people deeply and intimately. But what do you see in the world today, like as the biggest struggles that people have within friendship?
Um, so there are a couple things, and especially when you're, like, heavily on social, you have your pulse on, like, "Okay, what are we complaining about?
Yeah.
What's the thing?" A huge one is I'm always the initiator. I don't get it back.
Uh-huh.
I'm not getting people matching my energy is a big one, is that hunger for reciprocity. Another is a lot of the language around, "Does this serve me? Does this serve me?"
Mm.
Which I've used that too, but the focus is very on, like, "What can I get?" And I'm not getting what I need, and obviously a lot less conversation around, like, man, how do I need to show up? I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to do better. And then also making friends is always the number one inquiry, but it comes with some kind of qualifier. So like making friends as a new mom, as a divorcee, as so in some kind of transitional period, how do I cultivate community? So I would say those are probably the top three things I see pretty often.
Wasn't there research that says that most friendships end because people don't feel like they're reciprocal? or something like that. I remember looking at something around friendships because I talked about it at one point in time, and there was information or data, and I don't know if this would be something that you know or that we can even expand upon, where people do feel like a struggle is that they're not reciprocal. But I'm also confused because if everyone feels like they're not reciprocal, what's happening?
Correct.
What do you
Yeah.
think that
I've
is?
been in rooms where it's like, raise your hand if you feel like you're giving more. And like everyone raises their hand. It's like, okay, so just,
All
are
of
we just
you?
all suddenly in the same space all the time?
Right. Right.
So that's a big one. And, I get it, especially for women. Like we all want the same things in our friendships because I compare women and men a lot, but we prioritize them differently. That's just true.
Mm.
And so we all want reciprocity, but self-disclosure and reciprocity are top for women in our friendships. We expect emotional support and I expect you to give it back. I think the missing component is one, sometimes I don't think we give enough credit to the ways in which she is contributing to the friendship, but we're so often looking for it to match what we're doing. So maybe I'm an initiator and I want her to initiate too. And I can ask for that. But maybe her thing is she's always offering to come and pick me up, or she's spotting me for lunch, or she's asking about, my dad's health when I, told her he had surgery, and she's always attentive and remembers things. So I have to pause and say, okay, what are the tangible ways in which she is demonstrating an investment in this friendship? And can I find a way to maybe be
Mm.
content with that, which is hard. And then the other thing too is sometimes we measure tit for tat. And I think that's important maybe toward the beginning stages of a friendship because I'm trying to gauge your trustworthiness. So
Yeah.
maybe I notice little things like, okay, I paid for coffee the first 2 times. But the longer we're together and the deeper we get, it should be a little more loose, that I'm not measuring every time I did something. Okay, now it's your
Yeah.
turn. So at some point we have to settle in. And the last thing I'll say is you can ask for what you need. It is
Yeah.
totally fine to be like, hey, I know I hit you up the last couple times, but girl, I want to hear from you. I don't want to be, bothering you if you're busy,
Love that.
but I love hearing from you. So if I'm ever top of mind, reach out because I love to hear your voice.
I love the
Yeah.
playfulness of that
Yeah,
too.
you
I
have
think
to.
that's really powerful in communication.
And I think it's a balance now in my adult life between asking for what I want and also allowing people to be, to your point, like who they are and how they're contributing to the friendship. And I think it is a balance. I think you need both, but I've found that being really clear about who the people in my life that I am friends with are as like people and not wanting to change them. I have a history in like my dating history of like wanting to change people and wanting them to be different to make me feel more comfortable or secure or whatever. And again, I think it's nuanced. I think there's a balance where you can ask for things, but it's been a bit more liberating as an adult now and as a new mom to kind of know what people can give me, because also I'm in a season where like I might not be able to give in certain ways. So to have compassion for either those like core personality traits or a season that someone is in, I think is really important. And so you mentioned like communicating that and sharing your desires. Are there ways in which, or conversation starters that people can use to just start this conversation so it's not like you need to do this?
Yeah, because I think that is the hardest thing is sometimes we approach a friend with a little heat on it because we've been sitting on that.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of us, maybe it's just me, you talk to other friends about it and they hype you up and they're like, oh, that is messed up. And you're like, yeah, that is messed up.
Oh my
That is messed
God,
up.
girl.
So
Yeah.
go in with a lot of heat. It's just that who responds to that? I know that I wouldn't respond to a friend saying, hey, the last 3 times I've done this and you need to, now I don't even feel motivated to do that because I feel like I just got lectured. And so it always should be an invitation. It's not an accusation, because at the heart of this, if we were vulnerable, at the heart of it is, I miss you. I desire more of you. Sometimes I
Yes.
worry I'm more invested than you are. That makes me feel embarrassed. That makes me feel unsettled. That's at the heart of the desire. But sometimes it comes across as anger or we're indignant. And so some things could just be leaning in from that place and saying like, hey, I know the last couple times we hung out, it's because I reached out to you. But I just want to make sure that I'm never, if it's too much, let me know, I could pull back. But I'm sure that you have some ideas of things you want to do too. So how about next weekend you let me know where we're going?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm coaching you through it. And it's not like you need to step it up, but it's like, hey, I want more of you. So I know last weekend was on me, but you want to pick our brunch spot next weekend?
Love that.
Yes.
And now it feels, it's easier to receive.
Collaborative.
Yeah.
Yeah, collaborative, exactly.
I always love Lindsay taught me security statements. It's like, so before you kind of say something to someone, you like affirm the relationship and affirm how much you love them.
Yeah,
So
I
you're like, oh
love
my
that.
God, I had so much fun at brunch last weekend. It was the best. Like, I loved this. Like, we just got so deep. Do you want to plan the next one? Like, it's like affirm, or like if you're going to have a clearing conversation, it's like, I love how present you are in our relationship and I love how there for you you've been for me. And it's feeling like lately it hasn't felt as connected, or we
Yeah,
haven't felt as good or on the same page. Like, how is it feeling for you? And it just opens up so much more space for like a loving
that's
response
so
when you do
good.
that.
Mm.
But I do think what you're saying earlier too is so important in friendships. And it's like accepting people as they are and knowing what you're going to get
Yeah.
and like giving people grace. Because I do feel like if we are watching our friends and we're in close relationships with friends, they have patterns a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like some people, like one of my friends, whenever we're on the phone, is always like bulldozing her house. Like it's insane. She's like making something, cooking. It's like the sounds and the sights and the things are just insane. Like I'm like, this is this most chaotic
Are you
conversation.
listening?
Are you listening? And I'm like, this is just her. It is the way she is. If I want someone that's dialed, quiet, present, I'm not going to call her. But if I want someone that I think is going to listen, it's going to be there for me, then I'm going to call that person.
Mhm.
And instead of being like, she's never listening to me, she's da 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 da, it's like, this is always how it's been. This is always what it is. It's kind of just like, par for the course for them to be
Mhm.
this way. But on the reciprocity piece too, what I found interesting in my journey was that I felt like that a, quite a bit, I think. But I think I was for other people maybe not giving them. So it was interesting. I was going to friends that I didn't feel like were being reciprocal to me, and I was wanting more from them. And then I would have tons of people that wanted more from me, but I didn't know they would really want more from me, or I was like not wanting to give them more. And so it was kind of this like attachment dance with friends
Mm.
where I would go to the friends that were avoidant attachment and want more from them. And then the ones that were anxious attachment with me, I'd be avoidant. So I almost saw my attachment styles coming out in
Oh, that's
friendships.
so
Do
interesting.
you
And
have that too?
and one amazing book on that is called Platonic by Dr. Marissa Franco. She talks about attachment styles in the context of friendship, right?
Mm.
Because
Wow.
so much of that plays a role. And yeah, I do see that. And what's so interesting is most of the people I hear saying like, I just desire more. I want a more active friendship. I want more, are often pursuing the person who's like, I just need low maintenance friendships, bruh. Like,
100%.
I just need less. I'm not trying to talk to you all day. I'm not trying to. And so it's interesting, like, who am I pursuing? Have I articulated what I'd like? And has this person demonstrated evidence over the
Right.
course of our friendship that they're willing and able to give it to me? And we don't have to vilify this person, but if they're saying, hey, that's not my style, I don't like to check in that often, we do get to decide, okay, I really like this person. I have love for her, but our friendship goals are not compatible.
Yeah.
And it sounds technical, but
Mm.
sometimes it comes down to that. Otherwise, one of us is going to be perpetually disappointed. So at some point, if I desire, weekly chats and you're like, no, like once a quarter, we can do like a check-in.
Totally.
Okay, let me modify my expectations
Yeah.
instead of
Mhm.
walking around disgruntled that she is more low touch than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would pedestal them. It would be like the women that I would
Mm,
pedestal.
Mm.
I'd be like, "Oh my god, they're whatever." And that's like the women I would want more from, maybe because I wanted validation from them or I wanted like acceptance from
totally.
them. Um, and so I also had to like take people off of a pedestal as well.
Yeah.
Um, which is interesting.
Do you find in your work that people's core patterns in female friendships in particular are related to their relationship with their mother or
Mhm.
sisters? Like, what do you find in your research?
Yeah, so for my book, I interviewed a couple psychologists who specialize in the mother-daughter relationship, and they often did
Mm.
say that whatever that dynamic was plays a role, and so sometimes it shows up differently. So, for example, if you had a very combative relationship with your mother, or one where you were parentified, so I'm taking care of my mother, or she's coming to me when she's distraught, and my job as a kid is to be like, "Mom, it's gonna
That
be
was
okay."
me.
Mhm.
So how do I find what feels like home, and how am I replicating that with other women? Do I
Yeah.
find myself being the mom in the group? All right, guys, everybody's good. You have your stuff before we get in the Uber, everybody. So we have to ask ourselves, like, man, where does that come from? And has it been healthy? So is the way that I
Mm.
normally show up in friendships, has it been working for me?
Mhm.
Mm.
And I'd be curious to see what people's answers are if we got real with ourselves in that way.
What was yours? What was yours? What was yours? What was mine? You go
You
first.
go first.
In terms of what, mother daughter?
Yeah.
Like, hey mom.
Let's go deep.
She's like, don't tell our business. My parents were very strict.
Mhm.
And sometimes, and we've grown now as a family, but sometimes I was seen as being dramatic if I was crying or if I was upset. My dad was a drill sergeant. My mom was like, girl, stop with that. So it was like, okay, well, I don't want to show emotion because I'm being too dramatic. That's too much. So I find myself really craving that in my friendships. I want to talk about all the things and feel seen and feel like you hear me and that I'm not too much.
Yeah.
So maybe that plays a role. What about you?
Love that. How does my mother impact my female relationships? I think that's been the hardest part. I think for me, I'm able to very easily get very intimate and close to people,
Mhm.
but I keep them psychically at a distance. So I actually don't allow people in um very much at all. Like it's like if you are in, you are like in. And that means that I'll share things with you. That means I will like take up space. And so I usually like prioritize their needs over my own. And I kind of make it all about them. I'll ask them questions, always kind of like put it back on them to kind of have the control of the dynamic, the connection with the person, and then a knowance that I'm valuable for always asking them questions, processing for them, being there for them, but never like allowing space for myself.
Mm.
Yeah. Deep, I know.
Very deep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with my mom, we were very close. I was also the oldest child. So there's an interesting dynamic between oldest child and mom, I think, where she never put on me to be the second mom, but I think sometimes it felt like that just because of other family dynamics. And so I am definitely a caretaker friend I've seen show up where it's like to a fault, where I'm kind of prioritizing like, oh, are you okay with this? Do you need this? Your point about like everyone have their water, like we good kind of vibe. I've noticed that in me throughout the years. And then honestly, like I think the most impactful element in my childhood was like friends at school and that experience personally in my friendships where I was bullied and it was just like so bizarre and weird yet traumatic and like it was just weird and it just put this very bad taste in my mouth around female friendships and it just changed how I trusted people. So it was almost like I had to pull up and out and I only remained on the surface with most female friends. And I think I used that like caretaker as like a mask.
That's a good one.
Where I was like, oh, you guys are good. Okay. Like, so we didn't have to go too deep or I didn't really have to be vulnerable myself. And I liked being seen as the caretaker, as like the responsible one or, whatever people labeled me as. But I've had to in my adult life and Krista, our relationship has been like really the petri dish for like this growth is like being vulnerable and being myself and trusting other women and really saying how I feel. Like I would rarely say how I feel. I wanted to make sure the other person was okay. And I would just kind of swallow my feels.
Yeah, what's the because I think a lot of us have a female friendship trauma, girl trauma. What is in your research or just in your experience, like what has been the journey with that of women having traumatic experiences with women that sets the tone for the rest of their almost life?
Yeah. So here's the thing is, the research shows that 70% of a woman's social network is same sex. So most of the people in your life walking around are also other women. So it's hard to escape from that. So when women are saying to me like, oh, you don't understand, like I've had bad experiences, you probably have. Everybody everywhere in your world is women. Yeah. So there's a great likelihood that a person who's caused you harm was probably a woman. But what's interesting is sometimes the same source of our hurt is the source of our healing, because those same women are like, okay, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, there was one girl who was amazing. And she, so
Mhm.
there are women who, I think it speaks to the range of our humanity that there probably are women who have hurt you. I'm getting more comfortable admitting it, but like, I've been hurtful to other women. And I thank
Mhm.
God I've grown out of that, but I have made decisions out of insecurity
Mhm.
or anger that was emotionally harmful to another person.
Mhm.
And it would be sad if she stopped engaging in female friendships because of something ignorant Danielle
Mhm.
did at 20 years old,
Mhm.
And so it requires a lot of courage and trust, but to some extent we have to position ourselves to experience corrective experiences.
Yeah.
So if I've had a woman who, weaponized a secret that I told her, it's tempting to say, you know what? I'm so done with telling women my business.
Mhm.
Okay, well, then that results in me not ever being known and
Mhm.
me performing.
Mhm.
So if I find myself in circumstances that are looking very familiar to what I had before, but this person has given me evidence of trust, consistency, respect. Okay, I like that you said petri dish. Maybe I'm going to test it out here. Maybe
Mhm.
I'm going to
Mm.
try sharing a little bit and seeing how she does with that. Because when she responds with something like, hey, thank you for telling me that. You can trust me with that. Like, thank you for sharing. My brain
Mm.
like updates the story that I downloaded 10 years ago. And I'm like, okay, well,
Mm.
Mhm.
maybe women can be cool,
Mhm.
but are we willing to exhibit the courage to position ourselves for corrective experiences?
Mhm. Yeah, I love that, and healing, to be
Yeah,
honest.
which is hard. Yeah.
Because there is a lot of, I think, between women, it can be so hard because we are so intimate. We want that emotional connection. We want to go deep. We have such high expectations. I
Yes.
think that's something that's huge too, is that so many times women have the highest expectations for both themselves and others. And
Mhm.
even in romantic relationships, I mean, the expectations that women hold for their romantic partners is just like out of this world sometimes. Do you see sometimes people's expectations getting in the way of them having like deep, intimate relationships that withstand the test of time?
100%. And the research supports everything you just said, that women, the studies find, do have higher expectations of their close relationships. So romantic or platonic, we tend to expect more than a man might in his relationships. I believe that the disappointment we experience is compounded by the fact that we are, some of us, unwilling to talk about it because we subscribe to the idea that I shouldn't have to, especially with another woman. So, I think it kind of works against us sometimes when we're like, women, we have intuition. So I expect that if you're another woman, you should know exactly why
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
upset. I should
Mm.
not have to say that.
Oh, if ever
Mhm.
someone said to me, "You should know," I mean,
I hear that all the time.
what
I
are you
hear all the
talking
time, like,
about?
Or I would
she
never
should,
You
do
should
that.
yeah,
know.
that's a big one.
Oh, I
Oh,
would
I would
never do that
never,
is
I would
Sometimes I,
never.
I have like real anger in me sometimes on
say
that little
more.
issue. Meaning, if
That
someone does something to me or acts a certain way and I would never do that,
Yeah.
I have that story where I'm like, I'm pissed because like I would never do that to that
Yeah.
yeah, I
person. I
hear
would
that.
never hold that against them. I would
Yeah,
never
yeah. Mhm.
um ask for that during a time when I'm unable to give. I would never, I would never,
Mhm.
I would never. And I've had to really look at that in
Yeah.
therapy because I'm like,
Mhm.
what is that?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
Mm.
holding these expectations of someone else that, first of all, they're not me.
Yeah.
And also, am I holding myself back in actually expressing what this real feeling is? Be
Hmm.
underneath this, I would never do that. Is it like I'm hurt
Mhm.
or I'm really sad or like that really just, yeah, that triggered something in me. But it's like my default is, well, I would never do that.
Yeah.
What's the thing though? Like, I would never do that. Like, because I'm curious, because I think a lot of people feel that way. So
Like
why
an
do we feel
example,
that way?
why do we feel that way?
Yeah. Like, is it because we're living in our own world and experience, and we always assume that we're trying our best, and we are less likely to assume that other people are trying their best? What do
I
you think
think
that is?
One thought, I'll
Yeah.
say
Mhm.
a theory I've had, but I want to actually research this directly myself, because my theory is that, there's something known as fundamental attribution error. And the idea is that whenever somebody else messes up, we tend to attribute it to their character. When we mess up, we attribute it to our circumstances. So one easy example would be, if your friend is late to brunch by like 20 minutes, you're thinking like, okay, that's really selfish. I would never do that.
Yeah.
Like, does she respect my time? If I am 20 minutes late, it's because traffic. Like, I mean, traffic was crazy. Like I couldn't find my outfit. And so I think that a lot of us, when we see that a woman made a choice we wouldn't have made, I always challenge women to think about how quickly you go to character deficiencies. And
Mm.
it might be, I mean, if somebody's showcasing a pattern over time that she's dishonest and doesn't respect her time, a pattern, okay. But if she made a choice and you're like, I would never, how quick do you go to like, this is an indicator for character? Because what happens is we feel misaligned with that. Like there's no symmetry
Mhm,
here.
mhm.
And we cite irreconcilable differences because I can't be friends with a person like that. So oftentimes, like whatever the issue is, the action or inaction, conflating it with like a person like this. I mean, I don't know that I could be friends with somebody like that.
Wow.
So it's a theory. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that makes
No, that makes
complete
total
that
sense.
makes complete sense. I think I've been in situations where, yeah, actually now that I'm thinking about it more, it has to do more with the fact that I consider myself, I think on a deep level, an easy friend.
Easy. So easy.
So, and I'm not waving that as like,
No,
go
it's
me,
true.
because
It's almost
to a fault.
yeah.
So, and I think
Mhm.
it's that where I might be butting up against moments with people where they are sharing with me their clear opinions, thoughts, whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm taking that as it's a judge on my character.
Mhm.
I don't want to, a lot of this happened in 2020. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Mhm.
With friendship.
Transit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like friendships that fell off during 2020.
Mhm.
And it was just, I remember saying to myself over and over, wow,
Yeah.
like I would just never judge someone based on this. I would never end a friendship based on this. And now that you're saying these things, Danielle, I'm like, wow, like I wonder what their circumstances were to like kind of support how they were feeling.
I can't.
But
That's sweet.
no. But let's say that their circumstances were okay. We're talking
can
in
finish-
we're talking
finish your
in,
thought.
You're like,
in
go
very
ahead,
vague
sweetie.
Finish your thought.
because whatever they were experiencing was very real for them.
Oh, I hear you. Okay. So
Do you
there's
know
a
what I'm
lot of
saying?
dots connecting that are, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, okay, and maybe we weren't meant to be friends, and
Mhm.
that's okay. But I think I was just so hurt because if it was the other way around, I would have so much more acceptance. I would not care. I would whatever. But I think there's something interesting about the easy friend. And it's not always like that's the greatest attribute of a friend.
Yeah, I think, and just for like color on that too, it's like, what I'm laughing at is that you are always trying to see where you could be, where there is more options for humanity within people. And I think it's adorable that you're like, wow, what were they going through? Because I'm thinking of a situation with friendship transitions that we went through during that time, which were really, really challenging. But I will say, I think the one thing I'm curious how you feel about this is I think because you're such an easy friend, I do think some people may not think you care.
We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been through seasons where
Yeah. Oh, maybe even me or even other.
Yeah, I agree. I
yeah.
agree with that. But I think our friendship kind of helped me to realize that. I think
Yeah.
I'm in like it's like a whole new season where I'm like, the focus is just different. And we can
motherhood,
talk
yeah.
about that. But that was really eye-opening to me where we had conversations and you were like, I just feel like you don't care. And I'm like, whoa, that is so profound to me because that's not true at all. However, I totally see how my actions and my body language and whatever really point to that for you. And yeah, our friendship has just been such a like beautiful vehicle to like understand that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because I think with friendship, there's such a nuanced scale of like allowing people, like you want to have a friend that allows you to be who you are and gives you like space and grace to like be yourself and allows freedom and flexibility and ebbs and flows in communication. I think that's really important for me. Might not be for other people, and so that's really beautiful. And then there's also like the sometimes when someone like inserts themselves into your life, it feels like they care a little more. So like the laissez-faire, and I'm not saying this is you, like I'm not saying this is about you, but it's like the laissez-faire is actually the most loving because it's like I'm allowing you to be and move in my life. But then there is a part of us that wants people to be more active
Mhm.
in our lives. And I'm literally not saying this about
Yeah.
you, but it's like, yeah, there's such a balance in friendship of like how much time and effort you give to
Mhm.
people and how what being there for each other looks like.
And also before I think that like friendships like this, really deep friendships call you to like a higher version of
Yeah.
yourself.
Mhm.
So that was such a call for me to have awareness around that, to make an effort in a way that's really authentic to me, but
Hmm.
also like, yeah, in a connected way with Krista. So, and I'm sure like she's learned things about friendship with me too. So
Mhm.
it feels good, but I avoided it for so long because I had that, like, I don't trust women. I don't want to make the effort. Like, what's the point? But we,
Hmm.
in this friendship, like, I felt called. I'm like, okay, this is my growth and I really want to step in. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, well, I really hope people who are listening are leaning into that because healthy conflict is inevitable when you have different positions or you're trying to like negotiate something together. And raising an issue is a sign of care. So if I say like, "Hey, okay, what was going on with last night? Because what did you mean by that comment?" I care.
Mm.
Or like, "Hey, I haven't heard from you." Like, girl, I mean, what's happening? I care. For the relationships where I don't care, I am not raising it because I'm like, it's not that serious and I'm not that invested. So even reframing conflict and having these pinches in our relationships as, well, if she's bringing it up, it's because she's invested in this. So I'm glad for people to hear that because it's a really necessary reframe. But yeah, I know it feels safer sometimes to keep people at a
Hmm.
distance, or because it sounds like the role that you were playing in the I'll just be the caretaker still affords you some level of anonymity. Like, I don't need to be known to
Yeah.
perform this role, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting accolades for it. I'm being rewarded for it. This is my role in the ecosystem is to be caretaker, but it doesn't require me to invest emotionally at all. But I still have a role to play. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, sometimes I give like the physical vision of two hands. Like the closer we get, I am going to see you clearer. I see your stuff. I see your mess.
Hmm.
You also can see mine too now. So it feels safer to be out here, but also I'm less intimately known. I know you less, but yeah, it feels safe. So they kind of go together. And I think that's why, like, even when friendships end, it's so painful because you were probably deeply integrated. And the
Hmm.
research even shows that women tend to integrate their friend into their lives to the degree of a sibling,
Hmm.
men to the degree of a cousin. So we are like this, but it comes with both the good stuff and the bad stuff. And
Hmm.
I think for those of us who are trying to sidestep, the risk of
Yeah.
her telling my secrets, hurting my feelings, judging my choices, it all comes with being like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's interesting in friendship, there's like a honeymoon period a lot of times.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You'll like meet someone and you're like, oh my God, you're the best. And you just become obsessed.
You're
And
my
then
bestie.
you're my bestie. And then you like, again, you see them clearer.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, they do this or they do that. Or I noticed this pattern. I noticed this. And yeah, it's been beautiful to have friendships where we can work through that period when we're
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm not just seeing the mask, I'm not just seeing the persona, like I'm actually getting to know the person and I'm loving you outside of these things that
Hmm.
I deem as flaws that maybe aren't, but just something I perceive as that. And then even to have friends where I'm like obsessed and then you get closer and I'm like, there's this weird thing that you do that I'm
Yeah.
not sure I fuck with
Yeah.
anymore.
There's this book called The Dance of Intimacy by Dr. Harriet Lerner. And she defines intimacy, platonic intimacy, as, you're so close that even if emotions are up and down or we feel close or we're not, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to change you, persuade you, force my will on you. To some degree, you can be who you are. And it is hard because we do discover that our friends making choices that we're like, oh, I wouldn't. And I know recently a friend shared with me something she's doing with her son. And I'm like, so not okay with it.
Mm.
But I really, truly had to coach myself in my brain through like, okay, we both love our kids. We both want our kids to be safe. She's making this choice because she thinks it's the best thing for her kid. And does it affect me? No. Does it affect our friendship? No. Is the kid in danger? No. And like really having to talk myself through because it was so tempting to slide into like,
Mhm.
wow, she
Yeah.
would do that? Like that's
Yeah.
so obviously not okay.
Yeah.
And like having to pause myself because it's tricky. Or you meet a new girl, you look at her Instagram, you're like, ooh, wait, whatever it is,
Yeah.
dresses like this, believes this. So having to see to what degree do you really expect your friend's choices to mirror your own, and kind of reconciling with that.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
To that point, I feel like we both have had like interesting experiences with friendship and the fact that we have social media presences. Most people have a presence, but I think because we're
Uh-huh.
public facing in a different way than most, it's been interesting to feel like our friends either don't check in with us because they feel like they've gotten everything from social media, or they feel like they feel insulted that maybe social media has the news before we share with our friends.
Yes.
How do you talk to people about this? Because I think this applies to everyone. I think we're like updating ourselves on friends' lives through social media.
Totally.
How do we do this?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So for women, self-disclosure is the glue of our relationships. It is how we establish and negotiate trust through telling me something, I tell you something. So we're like in this exclusive vault together. And so
So self-disclosure, sorry, just will you define that?
yeah, so I'm offering voluntarily things about myself, my feelings, my fears, and men do not. I mean, they should be doing that more, but they don't often. But for women, like if you're feeling a girl, you start to tell her things.
Okay, yeah.
And she like tells you things and you feel like, okay, because she trusts me with that. So she must like me because she told me that. So that's how we're negotiating. And I know because it's often the first thing to go when you're feeling distant. I tell you less details about the update on my marriage or the guy I dated last week. I'm not sharing that because I'm like, So because of that, there are going to be times when they see you posted something about your life and they're like, she didn't tell me that. And
Yeah.
I know that onlookers or outsiders can dismiss that as, oh, that's so petty. But it's like the glue of our friendship.
Yeah.
So it'd be natural if they feel like, man, I thought we were in the vault together. So why did she choose to tell them before me? What does that say? Is our closeness decreasing that she wouldn't tell me that first? And I've seen that with several women, whether it's my friend, is going to move, but she told somebody else. My friend's pregnant. She told somebody else. She's having a health thing, but she told them before she told me, and trying to figure out, because mutual prioritization is very big for us. And that's why the whole like bridesmaids thing is a whole thing, because you're ranking your friends. But more so than men, we value feeling like, if I feel like you're my number one girl, I like knowing I'm your number one girl too. And so whenever that is rattled, we are like, wait, whoa, this is disrupting everything I thought I knew. But it's tricky because the research shows, and this was a small study, but it found that only 50% of our friendships are reciprocal in that way. Meaning if I see you as my number one, you might see me as like your number three. Because of the way that your life has been uniquely constructed over time, people rank a little bit higher than me. Can I be okay with that? And for a lot of women, that's really difficult to discover that imbalance. So you might have friends who see what you post on social, and maybe you either aren't super close or you are, but you're just like, oh, I'll just tell you in the next update. But they might feel like, whoa, I thought we were closer than that.
Right.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
I think also too, it's sometimes when something's going on in your life, it's kind of like, it is interesting that it's easier to tell social media.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, okay, I'm just going to put this up, than it is to like call your friends.
Yeah.
It's almost for me, and I don't do it a lot, but it's lazy. Like I'm just kind of lazy. I'm just like, I just want to, rather than like, hello,
Yeah.
I'm on friend 17.
Yeah.
Calling for the good news. Call you tomorrow when I'm depressed. Like it's like there's too much. Like our lives are so much.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. There's so much like exciting things, horrible things all at once. It's almost hard to keep up to date, I think, all the time with the nuance of our everyday and how much people have going on. Do you find that like for people that it's just like, how do we maintain intimacy and closeness when we have so much going on in our lives? Is it a matter of time? Is it a matter of prioritization? What would you say?
Okay. I am like so passionate about this because I want us to experience more in our friendships, but I know we're in a very like
What does more mean?
more integrated in each other's lives, which sometimes comes with you imposing and throwing yourself in my life because you're in my life. So sometimes it's inconvenient, sometimes because we're in community, you are my people.
Yeah.
And you see more of a cultural reverence toward low maintenance friendships. And I get it. And I know that's like a popular discourse. I get it. I think there's some nuances, but when there's a growing cultural reverence for it, man, I love friendships where I don't have to do much.
Yeah.
And like when I want to call, I can. And I know like if a crisis goes down, she'll be there for me. And I get that. I think to some degree, we do want our closest friendships to afford some sense of ease. But when you're saying, man, I love it when I don't really have to talk to my friends much, but I know if I'm screwed, they'll be there. That sounds a lot like an insurance policy to me. I'm not worried about it until my house floods. Thank God I know that I need it if I have it. I think that's just very interesting. I need some friends to be up in my space. And so I do want to pause and acknowledge there's serious burnout. We're burned out. People are financially strapped. We're still
Yeah.
recovering from pandemic. So some people really feel like, Daniel, I don't even have it to give. So I always want to acknowledge that. We've got kids. Childcare is expensive. We're not raising our children in community like we used to. People are burned out. But I also think that that's more reason to identify like your 3 to 5 people and really focus. Because I'm an extrovert. I like doing all the things, but I often put my close besties kind of like, well, I'll get to them. They're there. They know I'm
That's what I
here.
would do too.
But
That's
it's
what I
just
would do
like
too.
you end up being
Yep.
overextended and not totally seen because you're trying to do all the coffee dates with everybody. And your girls are like, girl, we have not talked in 3 months.
Story
What's
of my life.
happening? But we kind of rest on our laurels. Like, well, yeah. I mean, we go back like 20 years. We're good. So it's just like, if you found a way to say, I'm going to identify these as my 3 to 5 people, what would it look like to really go in with them, to really spend time with them, to spend extended time, which is missing, not just like a quick catch up, because a lot of us get into the routine of you update. Okay, so what's happened since I last saw you? We're reporting to one another. Like, what would it look like if we settled in and have nowhere to go for a couple hours? Or you come and run errands with me all day? Like, it's not sexy, but I've got stuff to do. Come with me. What would materialize there if we were more integrated? But time's a limited resource. And I understand that the reality is you can only do that with so many people. You would have to kind of get strategic in that way.
I've had a lot of friends recently be like, okay, I need to get on my probiotic game. I've heard it for years and I just need to get on it. And they're like, I know you've tried everything. What is working? And I was like, oh, I have one probiotic for you. It's the Daily Symbiotic from Seed, and it's incredible. I've been taking it for years. I have experienced better digestion, less bloating, regularity, and incredible skin for years now, and I'm really, really thankful. The DSO1 was developed in collaboration with Seed's scientific board and based on their foundational work in probiotics and the microbiome. They have new clinical trials and breakthrough research published in top scientific journals. They are all about the science. You can read more on their website. Why I love Seed so much is that it has a patented capsule design, which means the fragile bacteria within it can survive the journey. So from the moment you put it in your mouth, and even before that, like in the packaging to your mouth, down your digestive system, all the way to your gut and your intestines, it needs to survive all the way. And this technology allows it to do so. So I love that. I also love that I can just take it first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. I feel amazing. And it really sets me up to make healthy choices for the rest of my day. Our gut is a central hub for various pathways throughout the body. And a healthy gut microbiome means benefits for digestion, skin, heart health, your immune system, and so much more. Your mental health, like the gut is the center of so much. So don't take it lightly. Trust your gut with Seed's DSO1 Daily Symbiotic. Go to seed.com/almost30 and use code 25almost to get 25% off your first month. That's pretty major. That's 25% off your first month of Seed's DSO1 Daily Symbiotic at seed.com/almost. Code is 25almost. Okay, I am very, very clear these days on what I cannot live without. And one of those things is superhuman. Okay, if you haven't heard of Superhuman, I'm excited to talk about it. It offers a groundbreaking new type of audio called activations, which are a kind of like, it's a mix between a motivational podcast, cinematic music, affirmations, and guided visualizations. There's literally nothing else out there like it. There are countless categories on the app because these audios are designed to be listened to in everyday moments. So the other day, I took a walk and I listened to an activation on money mindset. I I'm someone that like loves to move my body. And it was really, really beautiful to just envision like a future me that has this just confidence and strength around my finances. And it felt so good and so real. But there are so many different categories, whether it's creativity or maybe you're stressed about an impending change or transition in your life. Honestly, they have something for you at any moment. These are science backed and made to help you transform your mindset and become your future self. So, whether you are cleaning and want to listen to an activation, they have writing activations, workout activations, motivational pep talks, and so much more. And honestly, the single biggest thing I've done to transform my life is to visualize and tap into the energy I feel when being my best self. And Superhuman has really helped me in those moments where I felt unclear and unmotivated. So I'm excited for you to try. I'm so excited. So Superhuman is a new revolution in personal development and manifestation. You need to try this, especially if you tried meditating before and it didn't stick. I'm revealing my go-to activation playlist so you can listen to the same ones I did. Get 14 days free, see my favorites, and head to activations.com/almost30 for over 60% off your membership. Woo, that is unreal. 60% off your membership. The discount is only available through the website, not the App Store. There's a money back guarantee, 100% risk free. So don't stress, try it out. Get 14 days free. Go to activations.com/almost30.
I do like the idea of having like 3 to 5, like having your
Yeah.
list. I always say, not always, but I've said to do a friendship audit.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for extroverts, people pleasers, like it's like we can have so many people that are considered friends that, we kind of are like friends on the periphery. And for me in my mind, it's helpful for me to get super clear on like what are my most important friendships that are like this friendship is so meaningful for me. This is the person that's deserving of my intimacy, of my secrets, of my time, of my energy, of my
Yeah.
love, and then the B's and then the C's and the
That's
D's. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's like, it just helps me understand my time. So if I find myself, I'm like, oh my God, I'm spending so much time with my C level friendships. Like, what is that about? Am I trying to like hide from intimacy? Like, am I avoiding deep relationships? Am I not showing up for people? And it just has helped me contextualize because otherwise it was just like, everyone's my friend. And you're
yes.
like, no, that's actually not true.
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah.
want to be mindful about how we're labeling even and using the word friend.
Yeah, and there's even something I just saw an article about like, the how we're losing fringe friends and the sociological term for it is weak ties. But the idea is that like, there's something called Dunbar's number. The idea is that you only have the cognitive capacity for 150 social connections, like to maintain them in your brain. And if you think about that like one big giant circle and then smaller and smaller concentric circles inside of that, the circles get smaller, but the degree of closeness represented is greater, right?
Yes.
So in the middle, he argues that you can only cognitively handle 3 to 5 ultra close relationships. And then the outer ring has like 10 to 15 and so on and so forth. But you need all those rings because the research shows that those weaker ties still add value to your life.
Mhm.
Like they find that you're more likely to find a job through a weak tie just because they've got one foot in your world and one foot in a whole other world. So these
Mm.
people give me access, they expand my thinking, they lift my mood. So you need all those friends and all those connections. But to your point, in terms of like being strategic about like, okay, how do I show up for my people? I think a lot of us would be able to, especially extroverts, if we got a little more focused. Because I know
Mhm.
that cognitively, when I'm trying to entertain a lot of people, I forget to ask about the health
Exactly.
thing you told me last week. 'Cause I got a
Mhm.
lot going on. But
Mhm.
if I were more focused, or I mean, this is very unsexy, but like even if you tell me, yeah, I've got a doctor's appointment, on Friday, that's when I get my labs back, like putting the note in my calendar, because
Yes.
because future me is not going to remember, but it would
Mhm.
mean so much to her for me to text unprompted. All right, what did the lab say? Are we good? But I'm not going to remember that trying to do all the things. So
Yeah.
to some degree, I've got to get kind of strategic and intentional
Yeah.
about showing up for my girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to be mindful though too that mine's not like my high functioning codependency where I'm like, okay,
Mm,
I have to remember this C level friendship's birthday and then send them flowers. And then I have to show up at this and I have to remember this. Like I've used it for me as a way to like, yeah, like funnel my codependency of being like everyone's favorite, always showing up, always going to be there, processing with 20 people a
interesting.
week. You know what I mean? Kind of even like avoiding myself
Mm.
for that reason. It's like avoiding what's going on in my life because I'll just spend my time like processing other people's stuff with them. And I'm saying that like processing. It's like, it's my joy and pleasure to do that. But it's like, yeah, I have to be mindful because I could be pretty codependent in that
Mhm.
way.
I guess it is a balance of maintaining sense of self and being integrated into my community. And what do I need? And will I feel more fulfillment when I'm comfortable asking for what I need? Or am I comfortable letting some things fall off because I found it was stretching me too much? I'm overextended, which
Yeah.
can feel scary, right? Especially for those of us who like the idea of having people in the back pocket. I mean, I've literally talked to women who have told me, you know, but yeah, I maintain this because, what if, some friendships fall through? Like, I'd have nobody. And it's just like, okay, so my strategy is to collect as many as I can,
Mm.
just in case I have fallouts, I'll have some people, which is interesting. But I mean, people have said that to me.
Wow.
In terms of friends falling off, I guess, how do you know the difference between like when it's meant to be done
Mhm.
and like when you should really call each other to kind of that growth that is needed?
Yeah, so it's tricky, like that fine line between, okay, is this a moment of like accountability and pushing each other, or is it just like, okay, this is too far? And I mean, you have to be really clear on your values, which seems very like, oh, okay, but like, what do you really value? And is this something we can call each other up on that is an extension of those values? So if it's something that's a fixable thing, if it's something that we can talk through and kind of shape together, because you really co-create friendships. And a lot of us sometimes are shopping around for the ready-made, just add water friend, but we negotiate what we want, what we need, what this relationship's going to look like, but it requires us to both equally engage and trust that friendships are malleable to some degree. We can shape this to be what we want. But if you have somebody who is not able to shape with you or is like,
Mhm.
Well, that's how I always am. Like, that's just who I am. I can't work with that. Is this something where I need to manage my expectations? Like, okay, I mean, I'd prefer it, but I won't die if I don't get it. So it does call us into, question all those things. But it might be time for a friendship to dissolve for a couple reasons. One is if there's any party that feels like I need to be here because we've been friends for so long, I mean, that would just be so disloyal of me to leave. And now the relationship itself is like an obligation.
Yeah.
And I'm like lugging it around. Well, earlier we said we only have the cognitive capacity for so many relationships, right? So at some point it's taking up space. And not to sound harsh, but at some point, the thing that I'm maintaining, because I feel like I oughta, at some point, I can't, it's affecting how I show up in other places.
Right.
So that might be one. Another is when I hear women say, like, God, I feel bad admitting this, but I don't even care enough to invest anymore. Like, I don't really care enough to call and be like, hey, so how are things with Brad? Like, it feels like a routine, and I'm not really interested anymore. And it sounds bad, but like that might be one sign that it's over. If you don't even care to be interested
Yeah.
in the developments of her life, that would be one. If you find that you don't like who you are when you're together, that sucks. So there, and then finally, I would say any kind of trust issue that cannot be worked out because that's central to
Mhm.
everything. So
Mhm.
those might be sometimes it's time to be over. But if you find that the issue you two are having is not a matter of any of those things, a loss of interest, lack of trust, I hate myself when I'm with you, then it might be something where you guys need to figure it out together, and call it out,
Mhm.
in love, because that's what friendship is. And the last thing I'll say is I know that sometimes women, I did this whole video on accountability and went viral, and women were like, yeah, I'm scared to call my friend out because I don't want her to think I'm judging her or I'm being drama, but like also I kind of want to call you out on that. So to some degree, we have to remember that being my friend gives you the right to hold me accountable. You get to say, Danielle, last week you said you didn't want to do that anymore. And now this week, you're doing
Mhm.
it. Come on. What are we doing? You get to impose in that way when I invite you to be a friend. Otherwise, I want hangout buddies,
Mhm.
but a friend is not going to see me say, I have this goal for my life, and then watch me do things contradictory to it and then stay silent on that,
Mm.
which can be hard. It feels
Yeah.
risky.
I love that.
And do you recommend breaks? Friendship breaks?
Mm.
I have seen them work because sometimes you need time and space for perspective. It feels really strange. It's not very common to hear people be like, I think we need a break. But I think if there's a certain level of trust, and if you front load it explicitly, hey, we can't seem to figure this out. And I'm not sure, but I'm thinking that at this point, maybe we need a timeout. And I plan to come back to you, but I think maybe I just need to like figure things out. And I understand if you feel like I'm putting you on pause. I'm not trying to do that. This is not a power play. I just feel like I need space to figure out how I feel because I don't know how I feel.
Mm.
I mean, you have to respect that. And hopefully you guys come back together. But sometimes you're in it so much, especially these friends you see all the time because of whatever, and you need some space, distance. You need to consult wise counsel, get some different perspectives before you can come back with a changed mind and be like, I think I know what we need to do, or I got a little
Mm.
clear on that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us could benefit from a timeout. It
Mhm.
just feels a little unorthodox in the context of friendship.
Yeah, I think it helps with perspective. I've had like some natural friend breaks happen,
Mhm.
and it helps me to have a moment to have more compassion for the other
Yeah.
person, understand maybe what season they're in. It just, because to your point, when I'm so in it and it's like just kind of like a constant thing, my mind is not working
Yeah.
properly. My heart's not working properly, or it's actually not really involved in the conversation. So, yeah, I love how you phrase that, because I think that takes the power play element out of it, which can make people very defensive.
Totally.
I have a theory about people. I feel like it's like everyone's always either the victim or like even in the accountability thing. It's funny that that went viral because it's like I do feel like women are always wanting to like tell other women what to do or that they know better too.
Hmm.
I think there's an element of there's 100% truth that we should hold our friends accountable to be who they say they were, but I do feel like there's that part of women that are like, she said she's going to break up with him. She said she's done with
Yes.
him. And now she's not done with him. And I want to tell her, da 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 da. It's like, I don't
Yes,
know.
I know. And that's what I'm saying. It feels risky to do it because you're like, what's my role here? And it's tricky because so I always say there's three things that women really value based on the research. And I call this like the three affinities of female friendship.
Okay.
And those things are support.
Yeah.
Because the research shows it's the number one thing women look for in their friendships, emotional support. Secrecy, which we talked about earlier, like that self-disclosure, we're in this private vault.
Mm.
And then symmetry. We really value egalitarianism, meaning we feel like everybody here is equal. So that's why, like, sometimes when you get complimented in front of a bunch of people, you're like, oh no, oh my God, this dress, because I don't want to be a target to have people think I think I'm all that. So we really
Mm.
Wow.
value sameness and symmetry. The reason I bring that up is because whenever it comes to an opportunity to hold her accountable, it feels risky because is she going to think I'm judging, which threatens our peer to peer relationship? Because if I say, like, oh, so you're going back to him, like after everything you said, does it now elevate me to like the coach, mentor, teacher,
Mm.
mom telling her you said you weren't going to do? Does it threaten that symmetry that
Mm.
that we really value? So I always advise if you're going to hold a friend accountable, you want to couch it in those things to remind her, I support you. We are similar. So I might say like,
Love that.
hey,
Yeah.
last week I know you were saying that you hate the person you are when you're with him very explicitly. And you said, quote, I think, do not let me go back to him. Okay. But this week,
last week he was a sociopath. Anyways.
but this week you're going to dinner.
Yeah.
So we might say things like, you sounded really serious about it when you were saying it last week, but I know this week you're saying you're going to invite him back in. Help me understand because I
Mhm.
want to support you. That's super important to me, but I don't really know how to support you here. Like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Love that.
Because sometimes even calling out the discrepancy
Yeah.
is enough to have her be like, well, and I want to give her credit. It's not comfortable being held accountable. It's embarrassing. And it also is a reminder that you failed. If a friend is like, hey, you said it's embarrassing, like you're witnessing me not commit to the standard that I set for myself. It is embarrassing. So people are going to get defensive. Well, okay, well, don't, or it's kind of like yeah, you're right. And so I think hold her accountable, couch it in language that's a reminder of, oh no, because I support you. That's why I'm bringing it up because I don't know how to. I'm getting conflicting, like, what do you want me to do here? And then you would have to use discernment to decide, is this something I really drill in on? Or is this one of those things I lean back and let her to some degree live her life? Like
Mhm.
she's still her own person,
Yeah.
and it might help to even say, like, because I've been there. You know me, I was back and forth with what's his name last year
Mhm.
to remind her, I've done this too,
Yeah.
but I want more for you. And hopefully the right people, they
Mm.
appreciate that.
And I think
Yeah.
becomes like a little bit annoying or exhausting when they're the ones coming to you either for advice or like kind of sharing
Mhm.
this, and it's like the same thing over and over.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I've been in that before, and I similarly said what you shared as an example, where it's like, please help me to understand because I'm actually confused,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it becomes kind of, I'm sure we've all had that friend where we're like giving them advice and or listening, but it's the same thing over and over, and
Yeah.
you're like, And I am of the perspective that they're going through whatever they're going through for a higher purpose. And this is a part of their soul blueprint. It's like, let them do their thing. And
Yeah.
we're also human beings in relationship. And can I like actually be a better friend in this moment and kind of hold up a mirror so that maybe that's a part of the path too, where they're able to see how they are being.
Yeah.
Because they're so in their experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's not you.
Mm-hmm.
What? I know it's not me. I'm good.
I know.
I'm like, what do you mean, bitch? What about toxic friendships? Do people ask about those? Because I feel like people use that word a lot and people are always like toxic friendships. What would you define a toxic friendship as?
Okay, so this is not very popular, but I'm just going to say it, okay? And people can get active in the comments. But I think there are 100% like toxic people, but a lot of times it's a toxic situation.
Yeah.
Meaning it's not good for you personally and what you need and require to feel healthy and to grow. Because I've seen people who act really toxic in a certain dynamic and not in others.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, so you would have to know what helps me grow, what makes me feel safe and to feel good. And if it's in this dynamic, because that kind of vilifies the person. And sometimes it's like, okay, you're a great person, but when we come together, here's what manifests out of that combination. And that is not good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard. And so if you find that, man, when we're together, I feel like I'm losing my mind and I'm always, so the person might be fine. But when you two come together as friends, that's not working well for you.
Mm.
And so I don't mean to like absolve anybody who's truly like just an awful person, but I know that there are good people who just make really crappy decisions. But if they are perpetually doing that, and the result of you two coming together is a lack of growth, you feel like you're losing your mind, you don't know if up is down, you would have to really rethink if it's helpful to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're reluctant sometimes because we feel like we want to save people. I can fix her. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. That's a big one. It's called ruinous empathy. And we tend to over empathize to the point where we become immobilized. Like we're giving so much credit to them that it's detrimental to us.
Wow. What's it
So
called?
ruinous empathy.
Ruinous
it ruins
empathy.
you to put their feelings first. And so to some degree, well, I don't want to hurt her feelings. Okay, but the alternative is what? You being constantly shamed about your choices, her canceling plans all the time, so you can't plan anything. So to some degree, I have to figure out when we come together, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Which feels really reductive, but sometimes the simplicity of that question motivates us to get a little real.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
What about forgiveness? Like if there is like kind of a break in a friendship or something that happens that is, really rocking the foundation, how can we forgive? What does that look like?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm like, Lord, how do I?
Have you had a situation where you were like, man, I don't know?
You are interesting because
I am.
because you're like your relationship with your mother. Explain that. Are you forgiving somebody right now? I'm like, oh God, I'm normally not asked.
Really?
Yeah, I work really hard to like on these
I know, sis.
interviews, like put my blazer on and be like, yes, let me share the
It's
data.
almost 30, baby.
And like not share my own stuff. So bravo to you. Currently, yes.
I'm also psychic. So
like also I have powers. So go on.
Yeah.
Currently I've had a friend transition and I struggled with like, oh my God, what does it say about me? Like I'm in this world and I can't make it work. And I had to take my own advice about
that's
like,
important.
I can't, we're still two flawed people trying to love each other and sometimes it doesn't click.
Of course. Of course.
But there were some things that were said and done that I'm like, that was so messed up. But I am working through forgiving her for things that I feel like were not okay to say about me if I'm your friend.
Yeah.
But forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. And so I don't know that we would be able to be friends because I would be looking at her with a side eye and that would be exhausting for me and unfair for her to always be looked at, sideways. But I also have to forgive her because I don't want to be hardened. And I do not want to go into new friendships like, well, I don't know, because let me be careful. I mean, she might say something behind my back like the last one. I don't want to be hardened. And so I do forgive her for some of those choices, but I don't think it would be wise for us to reconcile.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think the gossip thing, I guess there's an element of gossip maybe a little bit in it. Yeah. That's such it's such an interesting one because it's like I've gossiped. I've been gossiped about. And it's so interesting because I've known when I've said stuff, it means nothing to me. But it means so much to the person. You know what I mean? If someone says, "Oh, Krista's fucking inauthentic, she's all this stuff," like they don't. It means nothing to them,
Mhm.
but it means so much to you because it's about you.
Yeah.
And so gossips, I always find it so fascinating because I'm like, what is deeply painful for someone to hear is said so flippantly in
Mhm.
conversation, like when people are talking about stuff. Um, but yeah, it can be painful too. And I was going to ask about this in communication with women. It's like, what does a healthy dialogue look like and what is an unhealthy one? Because I know that there's some friendship dynamics that I've seen where like they'll yell, they'll like call names,
Yeah.
they'll kind of it'll be like sisterly almost in the way. And then some friendship dynamics are like super like, when you said this, it brought this up for me. And I was hopeful that we could, so what's like an unhealthy one and what's a healthy one for people when they are kind of heated?
Yeah. Okay. So the difference between like healthy and unhealthy conflict is, with healthy conflict, we are meeting a need or solving a problem. If we're doing that, this is healthy conflict.
That's a good
And
one.
conflict equals good, right? Because if I'm coming to the table as your friend, I have my own personal needs, boundaries, opinions, and so do you. At some point, as we're getting closer, like we talked about before, don't we think there's going to be like competing interests at some point and we have to like figure this out at some point? If it's never happening, we're probably here. So we're not as close as we think we are.
Mhm.
So it's going to happen. So healthy is we're doing and saying things that are helping us solve this problem or meet a need. So anything that would be contradictory or counterproductive is probably unhealthy. So for example, if I'm calling you out of your name, if I'm talking to other people about the situation, but it's not with the goal to like process, get it off my chest, it's because I'm like, that was messed up, right? And I'm triangulating now. I want you to like go and tell her, but it's contradictory. Silence treatment, it's contradictory because it's stagnant. So we're never getting to meeting the need or solving the problem. It's also very punitive and like punishing the friends who are like, you know
Mhm.
what, well, then I'm not talking to her. Which my former friend who I'm talking about did that a lot to other people.
Wow.
And she never did it to me, but it made me feel like,
That's
okay,
scary.
so
It
when is
is
it my
Mhm.
turn?
that's a
Where
good
you're mad
one.
at me and you're like, oh
Mhm.
no, she needs to know. The
That's
one
a
word text and it's
good
like,
one.
there's no room in a friendship for you to be punishing me. Like that doesn't even go together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so healthy versus unhealthy looks like that. Ask yourself, this thing we're going through is because we're trying to solve a problem or meet a need. And if it's not, and it's a bunch of other stuff, it is unhealthy and
Mhm.
unproductive tension. Like for what?
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that frame where we have like goals in that,
Yeah.
where we're not. Yeah, I think some people use whether it's silent treatment, gaslighting, like
Mhm.
all these different things to kind of think they're getting what they need, but it's actually
Control.
control.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's a great word.
Or
Yeah.
they feel hurt and it's a way of acting out.
Yep.
Totally. Yes.
Did you have another thing on this? I
I
wanted
was
to
thinking
ask
about
another question.
triangulation. You
Yeah.
mentioned triangulation. I think triangulation is huge. Can you explain triangulation?
So what's interesting is like I don't know how it happens, maybe TikTok, but like I'm kind of hot now on the sorority circuit. So I'm like in all these sorority things. So it's
Oh,
very
love that.
interesting. I get to kind of see it play out. So, oftentimes women like maybe we do go to a third person to process, but you'd have to ask yourself, am I going to her because I'm trying to kind of like role play first what I want to do before I go back to my friend? And is the third person I'm going to helping me? Like, is she
Mhm.
wise counsel? Like, "Ah, you know what? You guys love each other. You'll figure this out." Or is she like, that was shady of her. Well, what are you gonna do? I'm
Uh-huh.
just saying I wouldn't let her do that to me. Like, is it helpful? Am I doing things because I want her to go back and tell the other person so I don't have to? So like involving third parties and it makes a mess is like the easiest way I can like describe that. I'm involving an outsider in this issue and it is not helpful. Or
Mhm.
I'm trying to like manipulate through the third person. So I think it's helpful when you go to a third person and they're helping you guys have perspective. Hey, I know you both. I know she can be kind of fiery, but I know you get kind of sensitive. And I think you guys need to XYZ. That's helpful. We need friends to mediate. As a matter of fact, there's research that finds that perhaps women's friendships are more fragile because we tend to be very dyadic, meaning we form one-to-one friendships, like we have our bestie. So when there is tension, a lot of times we don't have a third party because a lot of us are besties. We don't have the other person to be like, hey, come on, you guys. So that's one of the reasons our friendships are more fragile. But you would have to ask yourself, when I go to this outside person, what is my objective? What really is the point?
Mhm.
Do I want to
Mm.
feel validated and be like, she sucks, right? She does suck, Or am I like, hey, help me out? I feel like she was kind of rude. Am I crazy? Like, what's happening here? what's the point? And only you can
Mm.
answer that honestly. Because we're like, oh yeah, no, I'm just venting. But really, you might be trying to sully her reputation, which we do a lot. So we'll say like, she was just so rude to me and so nasty, you know? And that is a form of gossip.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
it's I love it, not to do it, but I love it so much because I think it's fascinating. But it's called the virtuous victim effect. So they find that it's more effective to talk about how you were wronged by somebody to ruin her reputation than to outright call her a B. So it's
Mm.
more effective for me to say, I don't know. I just feel like she was so nasty to me, you know? Because I
Wow.
know you're gonna be like, oh, she's awful. But I'm not gonna come in and be like, she's awful. Because now I look horrible. So I call
You
it
think that's just with women?
uh, you know, I think,
Meaning if a man said that?
yeah,
I'm just curious, like if it would
I
feel or
think it's
sound
probably
different.
more common with women because we have such a pressure to maintain an appearance of cooperation. So I still want to look like I'm being cooperative because I feel like
Right.
we have a lot of social consequences when we're being the difficult girl. So I look
Wow.
difficult when I'm like, she's such a witch. I look problematic.
Yeah.
I look like, whoa, you can't cooperate with her. But if I say like, I don't know, she just really came at me and I don't know, I feel like it was really unfair, you know?
Wow.
Mhm.
Then
We
you're
love
gonna be like,
victims
girl, I
too.
got you. That's awful of her. I'm on your side. That
Wow.
alliance forms and then it was effective. Now you look at her like she's awful. But it's better to do that. So I maintain an appearance of cooperation while also striking my opponent in a very stealthy way. So I call it sophisticated stealth. Like the ways that we hit at each other that are not physical hits, but we have to be very careful because there could be social consequences for being the girl who's like, you can't sit at our table. Like that's how we did it in the 5th grade. That's not going to work at 30. That's too obvious.
Mhm.
So now I do little things by like, hey, I just want you guys to know I'm concerned about her because she's like really sleeping with a lot of guys.
Oh.
Like, do you guys know? And I'm telling you because like, I mean, I care. I'm nervous. This is not like her. I mean, it works.
I'm
It's a
nervous
double
and I
whammy.
care is just
Because
his
I look like I'm concerned.
Like
She
STDs are
looks
rampant.
yeah.
it's a
Wow.
health issue, really. You know?
Yeah.
So it's
That's
tricky
so
because those
true.
reputational hits are very important. And
I think what is also happening in that situation, it's like, so it's the victim part and it's the confirmation of this is how we feel, right? You know, it's like the
Mhm.
kind of like, you
The
know,
group
yes.
sync.
Like it's like sinking back to like, what do we believe? Like it's like saying
It's
something,
manipulative.
a judgment about
Mm.
someone. Yeah. It's like, you know, she's just been seeing that guy that she said she wasn't going to see again. And it's like, we don't, you know, or like, you know, why would she do that? Like, we don't want to go back to people that we
Mhm.
don't like respect or whatever. And it's kind of like, yeah, well, we don't.
yeah.
And then you kind of like grow in on that. But yeah, that's absolutely fascinating.
And
I think women can see that happening a lot.
It's funny how, like, as I've been in healthier relationships, moments like that are like alarm bells to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm actually going to say something like to kind of hold them to what is true. I think now I might say, oh, tell me more about what
Mhm.
happened rather than, oh, I'm so sorry. It's
Yeah.
like, tell me more. Cause it almost feels like a hook.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a bit more, maybe it's just like getting older where you feel that.
Oh, yeah.
in
You
someone.
can feel the hook
You're
for
like,
sure.
Wait.
For sure.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And sometimes, you know, hey, sometimes we genuinely are being like, no, I'm genuinely telling you. But that's the whole point is
Yeah.
I'm banking on you not to know the difference. So that's why it works because
Yeah.
it's masking as like the genuine concerns we bring
Yeah.
where we're like, no, for real, I'm worried about our friends. And the person was like, I'm worried about our friends, you know? You know, so you can kind of tell like, what's the point here? But I think that's I like what you said, you know, tell me more. And then also it goes back to like those character stabs we take. So maybe if a friend's bringing me that kind of like soft gossip like that, instead of me saying like, what? I can't believe she did that. I might say like, well, that's not okay. You know, because I'm isolating the action. And like, oof, well, that's
Wow.
not okay. That's not cool. Because I would tell my friend to her face, like, girl, that's not cool. But as far as like, man, yeah, that's kind of shady. She's being shady. That's messed up of her. So my feedback is not going to be in the character thing. It's just going to be on like, oh, that's not okay.
Wow.
Or, man, has this happened before? It was the first time. I wonder what she's going through because that doesn't sound like her.
Mhm.
You know, to
Uh-huh.
kind of, we're going to isolate this as an action, not to try to separate ourselves from her crappy character as a person, you know?
I like
Mhm.
that.
Wow.
I wanted to shift into transitions in friendship, meaning if people are in different seasons. We've been getting this question a lot. And I'm curious what you would have to say about this, whether it's like someone just gets married or have a baby, motherhood, any season of life that just causes a lot of newness, a lot of change, and probably a disruption of the rhythm of a friendship.
Yeah. My theory is that women go through more changes than men
Yes.
through their life cycle,
Mhm.
right? Because even having a baby, that's changing all the dynamics and has more of a cost and a sacrifice for you. If a man's about to have a child in his family, he's still probably living the same lifestyle. Okay. So I say that to say it is to be expected that, especially women's friendships, we're having this conversation. I'm having so many transitions and it's impacting my circle. What do I do? So the first thing is be careful about comparing because I noticed a little tension there. Oh, all my friends, they got married. Like they're beating you. It's not a race. So for some, I see we can't connect anymore because I feel like you have elevated somehow and
Mm.
I feel like I can't relate or I'm falling behind. So some of that mentality we'd have to work on. The second thing is say the quiet part out loud. If I'm
Love that.
scared that like I'm not going to see you anymore or I can't relate to you anymore, to say that, but we feel maybe a pressure to have to be okay with it. Like, oh yeah, no, girl, I got you. I'm going to support you, of course, 10 toes down for you. But
10
simultaneously,
toes down for you.
yeah.
What's that?
But just like I'm
Is that
saying, I stand in my
TikTok-y?
I know, like
Is that a
Leo.
TikTok
No,
phrase?
that's I feel like my husband said that. What the hell is that?
I
That
don't know
is
what it's from, but it's like
10 toes down is
just like I stand, like
Is it a
I
lyric?
I
stand
want
for
to say
you.
it's either Michael Jordan or
Oh my God,
We're gonna look that up in
a
the
obsessed.
sports
in the
reference.
show notes or something. I don't know.
I love
But
it.
you know, we
That's
tend
the
to do
merch.
these big, like, yeah. Oh, that would be
10
That is
toes down.
Yeah.
good.
That that is say the quiet part out loud. So saying like, okay, I know you're booed up right now. I love that for you, but I miss your face. Like I don't see you. I'm glad it makes you happy. But can we at least have like our Friday morning FaceTimes? Can we still do that? You know, so I'm showing you I miss you. I totally respect this new change. Can we introduce some kind of friendship ritual to offer a sense of security to our friendship? And so I don't lose you to this new world. The average person should be flattered by that and not like, oh my God, okay, get off of my, okay. You know, like they should be like, you're right. Okay. Like, let me find a way to work this. So how can I show I miss you? I know things are changing. How can we stay connected? And then also giving ourselves grace because we've never been friends this way before. Like we've never done friendship with somebody having a baby. We've never done friendship long distance. We've never done friendship and you've got this guy you're obsessed with. This is new. So how does friendship look on this terrain? Because this is new. What do we want to do here? Which goes back to that idea of friendships being malleable. We can negotiate and figure it out. But I think too many of us get stuck with like, wow, things are so different. I guess, you know, this is over. We had our run. It's not like it used to be. Now, sometimes it does spell the beginning of the end. I've had friends who become moms and I do not know who they are anymore because they are so obsessed. It's all we talk about. I feel like I lost her down the rabbit hole. So it's kind of like, okay, you know, so we're all having some identity issues as our lives change. But can we at least make an effort to maintain it by saying things are changing? What are we going to do? But some changes you can't repair if they adopt certain lifestyles and you're like, man, I'm not judging, but I can't get down with it. Like
Mhm.
I feel like I don't connect. I don't support it. I feel like it compromises me to be hearing this conversation. And sometimes that's just what it is. And I'll end with this. You know, the research does say that we replace half of our friends every 7 years. So to some degree, we should anticipate some kind of friendship pruning to happen along the way.
Mm.
Wow. What about there was a question from the audience about making friends in new cities.
Yeah.
If they're moving, how would you suggest they do that?
So one way I would say is to get comfortable leveraging technology. So like Bumble for Friends, very
Mhm.
popular, but I think it's really popular for people in new cities where they have like unconventional work hours. So they're like, okay, I want to find girls in a 10-mile radius who are into these very specific things and want to meet up. So leverage technology. It doesn't make you desperate. It makes you resourceful. You know,
Mm.
another would be to integrate routine into your life. So go out and explore, like, especially if you work remotely, can you commit to going to the same coffee shop every Friday at 9 to do some work because it leans into what's called the mere exposure effect. And the idea is that we tend to prefer things just because they're familiar. So we often romanticize like things were so much easier in school, you know, to find friends. You saw the same people every day. But I know it's kind of changed because we have to now facilitate those opportunities for ourselves because we're in home, like in the house all day. So where are you going that you're seeing some familiar strangers? So it becomes easier to say hello because it's like, oh, I see you every day on my walk. Like, it's less intimidating to be like, hey, how are you doing? Or like, hey, your dog's so cute. I see you on my walk. Like, how long have you had him? So how
Yeah.
can I manufacture opportunities to meet familiar strangers, also places you like to go, ask them. Like, ask the person who works at the bar you like, or whatever, like, hey, do you guys ever have events here? Like, what's happening around here? Because they tend to know. Oh yeah, like every first Tuesday of the month, we have like a book club. You should come. So ask people around. And then the last thing I would say is to um, leverage the help of super connectors. So these are people who like to be like, oh, Tiffany, you should meet my friend Maria, like that person, and be like, hey, I moved to New York City. I remember you said like you have some people here. Anything around here that you think is worth checking out. I'm trying to get more plugged in. People are happy to help, but we're too scared to make the need known because do I look thirsty? Do I look
Yeah.
desperate? Everybody's out here trying to connect. So I think like being on social media or asking in your personal networks, hey, I just moved and I'm trying to get plugged in. Anybody know of anything worth checking out in the city? You will be surprised by how many people put you on and maybe even extend a +1. Oh my God, I'm in a book club. Yes, you should come. But you will not get the need met if you will not make that need known.
Yeah, I think the fear of being too desperate or am I the only one that feels this way? I feel like a lot of people feel like, am I the only one that doesn't have a lot of friends? Or
Yeah.
because I think what they're seeing, whether it's on social media or out in the world, is like, oh, they have friends. They have the group of friends. They have that group that they've always had. And it can be I think we can get in our own heads about it so much. So I love just like breaking that by actually making plans, going to the places where you can have familiar strangers, starting that conversation, expressing your needs. Because more often than not, those people also are like so jazzed to connect.
They really are. I
Yeah.
think we underestimate like people appreciating us reaching out and popping off the conversation with a stranger, like, oh, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, starting a conversation with a stranger. But if you really think about it, you often share spaces with people you don't know. So to offer a compliment or be like, hey, okay, is it just me or is it really cold in here? I'm like, that's so chill, but also that vibe is just like, oh, okay. Now we're like into like a little small talk and it was cute or whatever. So there are a lot of opportunities, but people are always making new friends. People are always asking me, well, as a new mom, I hope it shows us you will always have to make new friends. Like you might as well develop the skill because you're gonna have to do it again. In
And
4 years, when something happens, we might as well figure out how to get it done, put ourselves out there, and kind of let go of that fear of being rejected, because you will be rejected. Like I like to lean into that. You will, because a lot of us are immobilized by the thought, well, what if I put myself out there and she doesn't text me back? Yeah, that might happen. It's equally possible though that you find your people that way.
Yeah, 100%.
So you have to do the thing. That's the only way I discover the people who accept my, outreach is I have to do the thing. And the last thing I'll say on that is, I know it sounds kind of woo-woo, but I know this is kind of like a woo-woo community. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like you have to adopt the identity of a connector. Reaching out to people and sending texts and invitations, it cannot be these behaviors that you try on in moments of confidence.
Yes.
It needs to be like, wait, I am a connector. Like, that's who I am. And then those behaviors become an extension of who you are. So yeah, I'm reaching out, even if you don't reach out afterwards, because that's who I am. Because I thought of you. And so, when I went to Target today, I saw this mug and I thought of you. So I'm sending it to you because I thought of you. So I'm going to send it. Not like, well, I would, but like, what if she thinks that's,
that's
I'll wait.
weird to
I'll
me.
wait for her to do it first. No.
Yeah.
If you value connection, you reaching out makes sense to who you are.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about social media and its role on friendships? Because I've noticed too, it's almost like everyone's your friend. I think Facebook even taking on the word friend
Yeah.
kind of like adjusted our idea of what a friend is. How has it changed the way people see friendship?
First is what you all mentioned earlier about like friends thinking that we're staying in touch with each other's lives because I'm seeing the pregnancy announcements. I'm seeing all on your feed. So it makes me feel like I'm spending time with you. So that's one way I've seen an impact on friendships. And then also, yeah, feeling like, oh, I'm connected to all these people. Look at all my followers. But it's like, okay, but who are your real people? So maybe skewing to your point, who's a real friend and who's not? Like we're connected socially, but friend is kind of a sacred thing. And it's something we have to get to over time. So like, yeah, I've seen that stuff be really tricky. But there's research that shows that social media is helpful to friendships when it's supplemental, but it cannot replace them. So if you're like, well, I'm good because our friendship, we mostly chat online. You're replacing in-person friendship. It really is helpful for the people who have in real life friendship and they're supplementing their friendship. Like, hey, we're out of touch for a week, we're long distance, so I'm going to use social media to keep in touch with you. Or I'm going to use social media to coordinate an event among my people on social, and then we're getting together in real life. So asking ourselves, like, are you thinking that you're close to people because you see their feed? Like, if their feed went dark, would you be knowing? And also, since I know I've worked with women personally who uh, will tell me how unsatisfied they are and how friends don't know certain health things and things like that. And I'm like, well, what's going on? But they probably feel like they know them very well because they post every day.
Yeah.
And they're talking to me and I'm like, whoa,
Mm.
did you tell her about your health thing? No. Like, we only catch up like a couple times a year. I'm not going to burden her with that. And so it's just I don't want to say fake because you are portraying a real side of you on social,
I hear
but
you
it's
though.
curated.
Yeah,
Like, come on.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one
That's
way to like pop out of that's super easy is like, I mean, literally, because it's just about improving by 1 degree, is like if you see something on our feed, to screenshot it. I mean, maybe some people are not into it, but I'll screenshot and I text it to you and be like, I'm sorry, when did this happen? And like leave a little voice note. Okay, I saw your last post about yada yada yada. You're hanging out in Santa Monica. I love this for you. Where are you gonna eat? Send me pictures.
love
Like, how can
that.
I personalize? You put that for everybody, but I'm back in the chat with you. Girl, okay, so
Yes.
are the beaches like as beautiful as they're saying? Let me know. Send me a picture right now. What are you doing? What does it look like?
I'm
Yes.
You
obsessed with
know?
that. I'm obsessed with that. I
Yes.
think that's so good because it's also like
Not
supporting
shaming.
them in what they're doing. Yeah, not shaming, getting yourself involved in a creative, playful way, like
Yeah.
making it direct, making it specific. Like I just think that is so good.
Yeah, because no one's gonna respond to like, oh, so you went to LA and didn't even tell me.
I mean,
Classic.
I can tell by the groans you've had that happen to you before.
oh
Oh,
yeah,
more
what do
than
you mean?
once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go to places and knowing that it's mostly probably for work, it's like it's very hard. I mean, you do it very
Yeah,
well.
my girl doesn't.
Yeah, you do it very well, but
My girl
it's
goes home right after.
I mean, if you want me to be on,
hmm
it's hard. It's hard for me. But
I'm like,
That's why we're different.
feed me your energy. Feed me your energy. What are some tips people can have to maintain friendships? Like, what would be some things that you'd say are really important for women when thinking about maintaining deep, intimate relationships?
Okay, the first two might surprise you. The first is I want you to question your relationship to work because a lot of us are, I'm just so busy.
Wow.
I'm so. And I get capitalism. I get it. Question your relationship to work. How on are you at work? Because you might not have anything left to give because you're so obsessed with work. It's constant, it's all of the time. That's the
Wow.
first way you can maintain your relationships is to figure that out. The second is if you are with a partner, to question the balance of domestic labor because there's a lot of women who tell me, well, I would, but I don't want to leave him behind, or well, I haven't cleaned up the house, or but I can't leave him with the baby, or he gets mad when I go
It's
out.
none of my friends.
You're like, wrong crowd,
0% of my friends.
So for a lot of women, they would engage more in their friendships if they didn't feel burdened by some kind of anchor at home.
Wow.
That's a big one.
I think that's real though.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
That's huge.
So, those are the first two things if you want to maintain your friendships is get your work stuff in order and get your house in order. So you have something in the margins left to give to friendships, or not even left to give, but we should be prioritizing. The second thing is friendship rituals, like I mentioned earlier.
Love that.
So, I mean, it is so exhausting to do the whole like, okay, well, can you talk? Can you do Thursday at 9? I can do 9, but I got 20 minutes. What can we do to put certain aspects of our friendship on autopilot? So you and I talk every Friday at 9 for 30 minutes. That's just what we do. And it helps me to see you. It also offers a layer of security to the friendship. I know that no matter what's going on, I'm going to talk to you.
Yeah.
And it gets us past that whole like, okay, fill me in, fill me in. Like we're really kind of in life with each other because we
Love that.
speak so regularly. And then the last thing maybe would be just to like to say it out loud. Because sometimes even saying to friends like, okay, I need to see more of you this year. I'm really trying to do better. What can we do? Somebody telling you, I want to prioritize you, it almost makes everybody buy in and get active because we just called it out. And I know I did that with a friend this year and it felt awkward for me a little bit to do, but I'm like, I got to take my own advice. And I was like, I don't like how infrequently we talk. And I would like to see more of you this year. And she was like,
Mhm.
she was so flattered. She was like, yeah, okay, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. And so we tried to work together to figure out ways, how can we be in each other's lives more? So now we've started doing little things like going to Target together because that's the only way we're going to get the time. So it's not sexy, but how can you tell me about your date while I go figure out what lotion I need to get? And that's just how we spent some time together
Love that.
today. So we got to get creative, but maintaining friendships is just so, it's so important. And I'll anchor with this final thing is the longest running study on happiness out of Harvard. They've been doing it for more than 80 years, looking at all these factors. And they found that the number one thing that impacts your happiness and your physical health is the quality of your relationships. So it's nice to get the follower count and get these brand deals and to have the babies and all the things. But if you do not have quality relationships, it almost doesn't even matter.
That's my number one priority, baby. I can channel my codependency with Harvard studies.
And I think like,
Those research
I
support my
was like,
like I'm doing it right.
I'm just happy.
But that idea of like the village, the tribe, like, you know,
Yeah.
I think we're coming back to that, you know, or at least reconnecting with that desire and need for it. You know, I think it's like within all of us, but because of this modern age, I feel like it's kind of been, we've just been deconditioned from that. And yeah, I love the way you speak about this. It's very like, I can do this now. I can go text a friend and apply what you said. And it's nothing that I need to like work up to. It's like, oh no, this is within me right now. And so the book, Fighting for Our Friendships.
Love the title.
Yeah,
It's
thanks.
special.
I'm really excited
I
about
love
it. There's
that.
just so much talk around making friends, and I think that's very important.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested in how we keep them.
Wow.
Because I mean, I could be like having high churn and turnover, but at some point, if I don't have the skill of keeping you, that's just tricky. And especially with women, because the research does show that our friendships are deeper than men's, but they are more fragile.
Yeah.
And we have more former friendships than men have. Like when they did the study and had them write down their names of former friends, women went, men are like, oh, I don't know.
Men are like, I kept Tommy around. He hits on my wife
Like,
every time
Tommy,
he's
you
drunk, but
haven't
You're like, I'll
talked
text him
to
right
the-
now.
Yeah, exactly.
He's my boy.
But to that point, they once did a study where they had people list, I know I'm digressing, but they had people list names of people they felt they could borrow money from, like you feel comfortable borrowing money from. And some of the men had listed the names of people who died. That's how not close.
Stop it.
Okay? So that's why I'm like,
Wait, what?
we are so much closer, but it does come with more heartache because we're so integrated. And so the whole book is about what are the mechanics of women's friendships? Because people are trying to save all these little videos of like, here are 7 red flags, she's a narcissist, and here are 3 signs what are you going to do? Keep adding to your Google Doc of things to avoid to be a girl's girl? Or do you want to take an aerial view and understand the mechanics of how all this works so that you know what to do when the little things happen? If she's not texting me back, oh, I know what's going on here. I understand what's going on. This is what I'm going to do. So I'm hoping to explain at a higher level what brings us together and what tears us apart.
Oh, I love that.
Powerful.
I love that. I think this is so pertinent and relevant. And I feel like people need a guidebook for this because I do feel like most of us have relationships that just need deepening. They need tending to.
Yeah.
They need more love. And I'm always just about giving people a resource because I do feel like they're using TikTok and social media as a place to just like stay insular and small and not get outside, you know, like not find more friends, not create more depth and intimacy. And yeah, I really think that the relationships that are the most meaningful are worth fighting for. Okay, so the book is out now. Anywhere books are sold?
The book you can get anywhere books are sold. And I'm really looking forward to people reading it. And people have been very supportive. And I love that for us. And I'm still learning. And so it's helpful to me too to put it together because I want to be a better friend. And it's nice to be in community with other people who feel the same way.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. All right,
This
y'all.
is beautiful.
Bye.
We'll see you later. Bye.
Thank you so much to Danielle Bayard Jackson. The book is Fighting for Our Friendship. It is out now. And we also have a few other female friendship episodes if you're interested in this conversation. If you search Friendships Almost 30, we've done AMAs. We did friendship roundtables. We did friendship breakups. And we'll also link all of those episodes in the show notes so you can go on a friendship relationship deep dive.
And be sure to subscribe to Almost 30 on YouTube as well as everywhere you listen to podcasts. We are on video. We we really take a lot of time to make sure we're looking decent.
Yeah, we
So
look decent. Got a full face for every time we
so
film,
freaking watch it on
baby.
YouTube. We see a lot of you out there watching on your TVs, which is so cute.
I know.
Maybe too big.
Scary.
Scary.
Makes me want to be more animated.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Take up the screen.
yeah, I'm like, we got to do this for our YouTube audience.
But we love you all. If you want to learn more about Almost 30, what we have going on, almost30.com, we have a membership and we have a book coming out in 2025. We cannot wait to share this book with you. We have been working so hard and it's just been our heart. So we're excited to share.
Can't wait. Love you guys. See you on the next one.
Later.
Bye.